I think employment attorneys are a group of mentally ill, useful idiots, like all of us, including me, especially me. Um,
So
we have a
bad.
variety of failings. We're all narcissists. We're all conflict oriented. We don't listen, right? Um, you had to hire an employment attorney, and you talked to a bunch of them.
Mhm.
How was it?
Um, okay, so the worst thing, the worst thing was the rejection. I probably called at least a dozen and was turned down by all but two of them.
Wow.
Um, because, my case was just not desirable for most attorneys. And so I took a lot of rejection but I kept going, and that's what it is. You gotta do your homework so you know what you want to tell them when you get hold of them, when you
Yeah.
talk to them. And then you have to just call a boatload of them, cold call them, hey, and try to tell them your story. And you have to be prepared to accept a lot of rejection. And what I found is after about the first three or four times, the rejection didn't sting so much and it wasn't any big deal. And, you just got to do it. But I think a lot of people take that really hard when they get
Yeah.
turned down.
I can definitely confirm people take that very hard because I'll talk to easily 20 people. Well, not 20 people, probably, I guess at this point, I'm talking to maybe 12 people a day for half an hour each. And
How many
most
cases do you take? How many of those cases will you take?
we take about 1 out of 20.
Wow.
And that's after the third. So that 20 is after the third level of screening. So they'll go through the call center, they'll make it through the call center. The call center will pass on, I don't know. I actually don't even know. It might be like 1 out of 30. And then
Wow.
the intake staff are more trained staff. They're bilingual. They have a lot more understanding of what we're looking for. They'll go through the elements with people, and they're not giving legal advice, but they're very conversant in like what a good case is, and they're so conversant in the legal theories that they'll be like, listen, it's not a discrimination case, but this woman was fired because of such and such, and that couldn't have happened unless she was a woman. So therefore, I think it's gender, right? Like you get legal theories out of them. You're like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's talk to that person. But even then, they're blocking a lot of people. I don't know how many people. Um, and I'll see comments on the channel like I called you and no, they wouldn't even let me talk to you. Like, well, first off, there's no guarantee it's going to be me. And then second off, I can't talk to everyone. Like the volume is too much, right? Um, and then the cases that get to me, like they're usually cases, but I'm still not taking more than 1 out of 20. And that's hard because some of those people I'm like, I believe you. I don't know if I can prove it.
Yeah.
Or I believe you, but the case valuation is so low that with what I would spend on the case, I can't actually afford to represent you.
Yeah.
And those two scenarios seem to hurt people more than disbelief. And it's I think it's hard for everyone involved. There's a
Oh,
lot of negative
yeah.
emotions on those calls.
I mean, the valuation was a thing for me because, I didn't get fired. I had probably 8 or 10 attorneys tell me, call me when they fire you. And, when you're an employee, you don't want to get fired.
Yeah.
I've been there 30 years. I didn't want to get fired. So it was frustrating. But, I just looked at it. I looked at the whole process going in like, I'm doing something for me. I'm standing up for myself. And really, with what they did to me, I don't think I could have stood myself if I hadn't done something. And I really mean that.
Yeah.
Um, so I was never expecting to get any money. I was not expecting to win. I figure I'm going to try to get an attorney. I'm going to give it my best shot. If I don't get one, I don't get one. I can't, but I'm going to go down trying.
Yeah.
So
I hate
I
when
don't know.
attorneys do the call me when you get fired thing. It really frustrates me because it doesn't address the human suffering aspect at all. It also devalues, like, there's this tendency in our industry to devalue emotional damages, which doesn't make sense. Like, we've never won a trial and won less than 6 figures in emotional damages. We've
Really.
lost. Well, obviously we've lost trials, right? But people will tell you, oh, emotionals aren't worth anything.
Yeah.
It's false. Like I have ex-partners who had $15 million verdicts on emotionals. Like that's just not true, but everyone says it. Um, and one of the ways, so something I worked on to get past that, you have to be fired thing, is called the retaliation trap, where it's like, okay, so we started the case where the plaintiff is still there, and now any idiot who does something negative to the plaintiff hands the plaintiff a lottery ticket.
Right.
And the data has borne out over the past couple of years that like there's enough idiots who are going to retaliate that
Yeah.
that's absolutely worth it, right? So I can tell a plaintiff like, listen, case right now is worth 60 max. Most we can probably get you in settlement. It is what it is. But if they act out, all bets are off. We don't know anymore, right? Like that. There's a big pot of maybe at the end of the rainbow, so we can take the case. But other firms don't want to do that, and I don't really understand why. It's been tremendous for us, and nobody will adopt it at all.
Yeah. I don't know. I got lucky with my attorney. You know, she thought what they did to me was really vile, and
Yeah.
she got it, you know, and she saw I had the evidence, you know, so it wasn't purely that, but even though I didn't have pecuniary damages at all, she was willing to go the distance. And I don't talk about this a lot because I don't want people asking me for her phone numbers, thinking they're going to do that, she's going to do this for them. But
Yeah.
you know, she actually carried me for the last 2 or 3 years on contingency, her dime,
Wow.
because she was so sure she could win. And she got paid well at the end. So did I. I didn't
Sure.
expect to get anything. I told her about like a million times, if you can get him to pay you, then all I want is my retainer back. I'm good. You know, and the morning of my hearing, she said that really impressed her. And I said, yeah, I would still do it today, the morning of my hearing.
Yeah.
Um, but she cared more than that, you know. So I lucked out.
I love that. That's fantastic. There's not enough of us like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Where this industry needs more attorneys and more kinds of attorneys. Like I'm not saying that the narcissists who go out and fight with people every day are not required, but we need more than just that. And it sounds like she was more than just that.
Oh, she was awesome. Yeah, she really
Amazing.
was.
Um, well, if she ever wants to come on the channel, by all means.
I'll tell her.
Okay. I mean, those are my questions. That's what I had. I know you had a couple things you mentioned talking about. Is this, how's the process going for you? Is this good?
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. Good. Good.
Very comfortable. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, listen. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your channel. I mean, we'll cut this out, but I think you're helping a lot of people. I really, even compared to the attorney channels, I think you're helping a lot of people.
I think there's a lot to be said for not feeling alone when like not feeling
Yeah.
like you're the only one that this is happening to, because you start feeling like something's wrong with you. It's a real shameful thing, and it'll take you down if you're not careful.
I don't think that anyone ever feels, or at least it's rare, um, that the attorney has made them less alone. They feel like there's a team fighting for them, maybe, but it's not, it doesn't, there's no sense of kinship, you know? I don't get the sense that my clients are ever like, you're my ride or die. Like you would do this for me, like to the end type of thing. Because I think the economic relationship drives a
Yeah,
wedge. And also, our own having tough conversations drives a wedge. Trying to talk to someone and be like, okay, so you have, you were horribly wronged, and we view that as worth X amount of dollars. Like the person who receives that conversation, I can't imagine that's going to engender trust. Like that's a hard thing to hear. Like you're putting a dollar bill value to what I went through. Like that's, I mean, was that, did you ever have to hear that from your attorney or no?
so my attorney, she listened to me.
Yeah.
about a lot of stuff. Like I said, most of those attorneys were telling me your case isn't worth anything. You're not going to get anything. It's just emotional. You're getting nothing. And so my attorney, about a week before my hearing, she said, okay, let's get real about what we're going to ask for.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And I told her the deal. I want you to be paid. I don't care what happened. Anything I get is gravy.
Yeah.
I want you to be paid in full because I never would have had to hire an attorney if it hadn't been for them. So I want
Yeah.
them to pay for that. And she said, yeah, but let's get real about what the damages are going to be, what we're going to ask for. And I said, well, that's on you because all I really want is I want somebody at NASA to have to sit there for 5 minutes and think about what it was like to be me.
Yeah.
And then I went into some detail about what that was like with her. And she knew. And I said,
Mhm.
I think they need to think about that. That's what I want more than money. And she said, I think we should ask for the max after I finished my story. And I
Amazing.
said, great. Okay. So she did, and we got it.
I love that. I'll be honest, that is somewhat rare. You'll get folks who want to do it that way, but you will also get people who will come in and be like, I think I'd like $30 million. It's like, well, I don't think we're gonna do that for you. Like I just need to be upfront here. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. And here's why. And that conversation can be very jarring. And it degrades trust a lot because like, oh, you're trying to sell me out. It's like, no, no, I'm not telling you to take pennies on the dollar. I'm just telling you that the 30 million number, like you were unemployed for 6 months. Like you're posting on the internet about how happy you are. Like we're not making $30 million. It's just not gonna happen. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's always the bane. That's where this industry gets ugly. That conversation. It sounds like your attorney did everything right. But
Well, I lucked out because I went in with really realistic expectations. I had none really, and that's realistic.
yeah, that is.
Most people
That
get
is.
nothing. So she just responded really well to that. She took care of me. She didn't just take her money and run. You know what I mean? She could have.
It's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And that there's so many attorneys who are like, oh, I got to get this person off the phone. It's like that's not one, even if you're the worst person in the world, that's not a good way to maximize your economic value, right? Like
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be the worst person in the world. Like what
I don't know. I found, by the way, that texting is the way to go.
with attorneys?
Yeah,
I think every single attorney would agree with you.
really.
Texting or email, which I think there still has to be phone calls sometimes.
Yes, yeah. But my attorney made most of the phone calls. She gave me her number and I texted her when I needed her, and then
Oh
she
wow.
said, okay. So yeah. But that was hard because again, we're sitting there and we want the LA law experience. We want you guys to come in and hold their hand and tell us everything's going to be okay. And that's not what you do. That is
No,
not what you do at all.
it's so not. And there's some good reasons why. Like I can't be like everything's gonna be okay because then 3 years later, like you told me I was guaranteed a result because you said everything was gonna be okay. It's like, well,
Yeah.
no, but also just we're so jaded and we come to the industry often for the wrong reasons. I think I in some ways came to the industry for the wrong reasons, and it doesn't lead to the correct path to build a relationship, I think.
Well, plus, I mean, I think you hit on something earlier about the empathy. It's like if you open yourself to every client that you have and everybody that comes through your door, especially, then you're going to be burned out in a month or two. It's not going to take long because there are so many people out there who need this kind of help. There really are.
There is, and there's just not enough employment. I mean, the way our firm operates, it operates because there's so many states with no options, right? Like if you're in, I think like North Dakota, you have zero options for a plaintiff side employment attorney.
Yeah.
We're the only people you can call, right?
Wow.
That's insane. That how can that be? Right? Like it's a lucrative,
Sad.
like you, you can I know a gentleman who runs 40 cases a year. That's all he does. 40 cases a year. He spends a tremendous amount of time on those cases. He has a very comfortable living from his 40 cases a year. He takes his kids to school. He's at every soccer game. You know, like it's not like you need to work yourself to death to do well in this industry. When he's on trial, his life is bad. There's no question. You know,
Yeah,
any employment attorney on trial has a very unpleasant life for 2 to 3 weeks. So what? So
I don't
what?
know. To me, 40 cases sounds like a time. I,
Oh,
I can't
you got to
imagine.
remember the settlement rate. I think the settlement rate across the industry is north of 95%.
Oh,
And I mean, I think our settlement rate right now is like 98.5 or something like that.
wow.
So like 40 cases is not a guarantee that he gets a trial every year, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So, uh, and also there's a lot of case like we'll bring cases that settle in 48 hours is the current record. You know, it's just
Wow.
somebody doesn't want their spouse to find out what they did, and they somehow get the cell phone number of an attorney over here and say how many zeros on the check. You know, that happens. It's not the norm, but it happens. So 40 seems reasonable for one attorney over the course of a year for me. I would think I wouldn't want to run 40 cases solo. Tell you
Yeah.
that. You're right about that.
Yeah.
All right. What do we have?
So
Muted myself.
do you want to hit some of my questions?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm sorry.
So, so what I would like to see, and the reason I kind of started this channel was just to kind of see what would happen if somebody did this,
Yeah.
to kind of explore the landscape and see, okay, are they coming after me right away or what, you know? And they haven't, you know, I try to be careful how I handle it.
Sure.
But NASA's, to their credit, has kind of left me alone here. And so I think some people are encouraged, but they're still kind of intimidated about doing it. You know, they're worried what their employer is going to do, and they're worried about, you know, getting in trouble because they're given legal advice, which I mean, you know, that's a tough line.
Yep.
Um, so what would your advice be to somebody who's thinking about doing what I'm doing?
So the easiest advice is be judgment proof. If you have nothing that they can take from you in litigation, right? Like you that would be the easiest advice. If you have assets, the fact of the matter is that they can then engage with you. They can come after you. And I think you can certainly countersue for retaliation. There's so much you can do, but the point is not that they're going to win their case, which I assume would be a slander or defamation case, whatever it is. The point is that they're trying to grind you down with legal fees to
Yeah,
silence you. And we see that all the time. I'm working on a project right now that I can't even, apparently I talked about it too much and I got in trouble. Um, we can't talk about too much, but every single person involved with the project is trying to figure out how they're going to fight potential defamation claim when it goes live, right? And not me. I'm very lucky. I don't have a claim, but it's, I mean, it's honestly an act of bravery. Like you engaged in an act of bravery, and there was a risk. It might have been slightly less because NASA's the federal government, and they're petty, but they're petty on an interpersonal scale, not on a we're gonna hire attorneys and go after you for defamation scale, right? Usually, not always. So that's not true of like a mom and pop business in Iowa. They
yeah,
might feel, whoa, you're saying that my son, who is my general manager, did X, Y, and Z to you? I will bury you. And
wow.
you will see people, not so much with the cases when they're alive, because defense counsel won't let them. It's too stupid. First off, in most jurisdictions, what you put in the complaint has a lot of protection against defamation claims. So that's already like pretty protected. But defense counsel is also going to say that's retaliation. You're trying to stifle litigation. Like that doesn't look good for you.
Yeah.
Pardon me. But after the fact, defense counsel is not there anymore. And I think that's something people don't always understand is defense counsel in many ways is engaged in triage. They're trying to keep the case from getting worse, which means avoid retaliation. And usually their goal is to cut you a check. They want to bill a bunch of money and then cut the plaintiff a check. Usually.
Yeah. Okay.
But when they're not around, mom and pop in Iowa only think about there's no way my son would have done that. Right.
Yeah.
And they go find a local attorney and they give him 50 grand. And boy, now you have a real problem. And you can call up employment attorneys and we'll say, sure, we'll bring a retaliation case for you. We'll even fund it. But we're not going to defend that litigation, right? Like if you were to hire our firm to defend an hourly litigation like that, prohibitive, almost
Yeah.
$1,200 an hour. And
Yeah.
easily you're going to hit six figures before the case even gets to trial.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's no way, right? Like it's insane. And people will say, why so much? It's because we can't win you anything on it. We can bring the retaliation case and put you on the offensive and do that primarily on a contingency because that's a valuable case. But we can't defend the case where we can't win you anything unless we bill you. And that's horrific. So
Nobody can afford that. Yeah.
very few people, which is why like I don't want to be flip about it, but often the judgment proof people are the people who have the most voice. Because what are you going to take from someone who rents, whose car is worth less than 6 grand or whatever the bankruptcy exception is? Like, it's just that person's safe. Realistically, oh, you sued me? Let me know how it goes. Nobody cares.
Exactly.
It's just I'm not going to show.
I'm an ex-civil servant, so I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's I think we have a couple of mutual viewers who have done things that were public.
Mhm.
And it fills me with fear every time, you know?
Really?
It does. Yeah, it's easy when it's easy to do press when you have a complaint live and you have a PR team, and you have a handler, and there's people there who can jump in and be like, "Whoa, hold on," and just interrupt the interview if you have to, right? Like, because you might say something that might sound like it's not true. That could be the fodder for litigation, right? But when it's just you and a camera and you're in the comfort of your home, it's terrifying to me. Like it's terrifying. And I'm thinking like I'm like running through like faces and names of people who I know on the internet who are doing this right now. And I think they have a lot to lose. And I also think their story is incredibly valuable. Um, yeah, I mean,
So you think I'm stupid, is what you're saying?
no, I think you're brave and you did everything in the smartest way possible. And
I try.
that's why I associate you with that fiction character who went back into the horrible prison to help others. Because I think you embraced tremendous risk in doing what you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it worked out. You helped a lot of people and they never came after you.
So far, so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fingers
Hopefully that
crossed.
was depressing. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. It's fine. I honestly wondered because, there's one girl in particular, I think she'd be amazing. I mean, she's young, she's gorgeous, she's got a family, she's
Yeah.
got a huge judgment, she's done a lot of her work herself. And I just think she'd be fantastic, but she does have a lot to lose. So,
And that's always the hardest part when you're advising someone who comes to you like, hey, can I go public? Well, yes, you can. And I think that you would win a defamation claim. I think because you can prove everything you're saying is true. But it's not about whether or not you can win. Can you afford to fight it?
yeah, yeah,
And there's no absent groups like the NAACP or, like groups who sometimes fund these things. Um,
Well, I will tell you though that I, I'm not that brave because there's a book out right now from a former associate administrator of NASA, a woman, and she's calling out some people by name for some pretty vile things they
yeah,
did. And I'm not calling anybody out by name. So when they go after her, I might, you know, go dump my assets. But right now, I think we're good.
there's I watched the implosion of FEMA. FEMA has a lot of issues right now, a lot of gender issues, very, very well documented. Um, and it just doesn't seem to care, like at all.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to watch. And I would have thought, like, when you look at the federal agencies, I would have said, oh, Homeland Security is going to have problems, like for sure. But they seem to fear HR and fear consequences. And even when they do horrible things, they're like, oops.
Really?
In my experience, yeah. But weird aid like FEMA just doesn't care. Like, why would a woman be in management? What are you talking about? Like, what? And then you're like, you only have like one woman at this entire managerial level. And they're like, so? It's just like, well,
Whoa.
so we have a really well-established data-driven case. Like, we could probably win this in summary judgment. Not our money. Okay. All right, I guess. I mean, but
Well,
the
I mean, that is what it comes down to with the government, and when I think about what NASA, how much money NASA wasted, because I did have a good case and I had a good case right out of the gate, from the very beginning. But, somebody who's an EEO professional at another agency told me, he said, the stronger your case is, the less likely they are to settle with you. Because they know they're going to have to pay you eventually, and the goal is to put it off as long as possible.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I always joke that the absolute best and the absolute worst cases are the ones that go to trial because the absolute best cases, you're not going to accept a weak settlement. So you would go forward
Mhm.
and you can easily find an attorney to fund everything for you. And the absolute worst, that's where the defense counsel wants to bill because they want it to go to trial because they get to bill more and put up a big win, right? Everything in the middle settles, right? Because nobody really wants to find out who's going to win or how much they're going to win. It could be the worst is
Yes.
when you win and your client wins 20 grand. Like, we believe everything you said. These horrible things did happen to you. We just don't think we care that much. Here's 20 grand. That's not a good day, but it happens. And then you
Uh,
have to sit there and talk to your client like, you could win. Like, you need to think about this. Like, we believe you win, but you could win and you didn't keep a mitigation journal or you didn't do this or you didn't do that. Like, you might not win that much.
yeah, it's a lottery. It's a
It
real
is.
lottery.
It is, especially with the juries.
Oh, really? They're worse. They're hard, more unpredictable.
They're very much more unpredictable, although I think they have a tendency to give larger verdicts when they're sympathetic.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, in my limited data set.
I'm very limited.
Do we have anything else we should cover?
I think we're good. I mean,
Okay.
you hit on a lot of my other questions, so as
Okay.
we've talked here, so I've really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it as well. I would love if you ever feel like coming back on. I think you add so much value for people. Like I can't even. It sounds like I'm saying it. I sound like a broken record, I guess, but I think you and what you're doing in many ways is the missing puzzle piece.
Well,
Like less than 4% of people are bringing their claims forward.
wow.
We know this, right?
Yeah,
Why?
because
Bad attorneys, right? The industry's failing them, but
it's
also
impossible. Yeah.
no one to follow in the footsteps of because every settlement that doesn't happen in California or Washington is confidential. So people can't talk about it.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah.
We have to, at some point we've got to be able to talk about it.
It's a weird tension. Actually, I would love to get your opinion before we go. Um, so you didn't settle, so you're not bound by confidentiality.
No.
One of the issues you look at with the idea when states will outlaw confidentiality in these cases, the valuation of cases goes down because part of what the employer is paying for is silence. They want to purchase silence, right? And clearly, as a society, we need the cases to be public. We need the stories because stories are how we're going to change as human beings, I believe. But in doing that, we've devalued the claims for the individuals who went through the events. There's
Yeah.
like this question of like utilitarian value for society versus this person was horribly harmed. And we're now taking money out of their hands because they can't sell their silence anymore, which they may.
Wow. I didn't think about that, but that's unfortunate.
It is. I've had this debate a bunch of times, and I don't think it's not a good look for me, but like I'm passionate about it. Like I fully believe because people are like, no, you're just trying to keep confidentiality alive. It's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm saying is we need to change how damages are calculated when we roll out those laws, right? We can't say we decided this is good for society, so your case is just worth less now. That's not really okay. It was already undervalued. And obviously people are going to be like, Vince, you have every motivation to say this. You want to make more money. Yeah, sure. But like fundamentally, the argument holds together. Like if you get sexually harassed and you only get, and you're working at McDonald's and you making 20 grand a year, you might only get 40 grand. Right.
Yeah,
And
that's sad.
now that state just rolls out, you can't sell confidentiality anymore. Now all of a sudden that employer's like, oh, you know what? We'll give you 25.
Yeah.
Because you're going to talk about it. Like it's a problem. I think we have to change the damage calculation.
Good luck with that.
Okay. I'm sorry. It was really cool talking.
Huh?
It was great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
You too.
All right. Take care.
Do it again. Bye.
Can't wait. Bye.